This is John at Dambest. We are now manufacturing both wet bench and dynos in-house. This is the panel for the dyno. It's very similar than it is in the wet bench. The computer is also similar. As you can see, we have air, fuel, and air-fuel ratio in the computer screen. I'm showing the same screen for both the wet bench and the dyno. The other one would have horsepower and RPMs. As you can see, the fuel flow, and actually this was during a test for the wet bench, but like I say, the computer is the same for both. Here's the dyno stand from the front with the rolling cart. You'll see the slides that were for the front motor mounts and the motor plates, the drive connector between the engine and the absorber, the cart going in. This shows the plate for the rear of the engine plate. It also is adapted to bell housings. We had made up plates for one of our customers so they could do a absorber mounted starter. So we had rear engine plates. It has a tool rack in the back where we can also put the spark plugs and other hand tools. Here's where the bell housing would go if you were just going to use the bell housing for doing dyno tests and the absorber. Once again, this is where the rolling rack is set up for just using bell housings at this point. We will show some more about the rear engine plate and what's necessary. This is where the rear engine plate is, and there's a connector that goes between the dyno stand and the absorber stand to help with the torque, as you can see between the two. Here's the slides for the front motor plates and the front motor mounts. Here's the connector between the sliding cart and the absorber stand if you're going to use the rear engine plate instead of a bell housing. This transmits the torque through the stand, keeps the distance correct. That's the rear block plate that would go on if you're not going to use the bell housing and starter. Here's the water tower. We use regular hose connections. You can always make change with the order. If you want to use AN connectors instead of just hoses, majority of the engines is that. The footprint for the cooling tower is just 4 legs. There's actually CNC'd 4 legs and crossbars, so they keep them extra sturdy. It's another picture of the water tower. Here's the thermostatically control valve, atrostat valve that keeps the water tower temperature perfect. You would have your cool water going into that valve, just rotating the cooling tower so you can see it. Here's a single and a double absorber, all CNC'd and made in-house. Each unit will hold about 500 foot-pounds. If you're just using water, if you switch over and use transmission fluid, automatic transmission fluid, you can extend the torque because there's a higher shear in transmission fluid than there is in oil and water. This is a picture of the double. The top is a vent, which also can, if it really extreme cases, can be an additional water fill going in between the two inner impellers. And, if you're really straining it, I don't think it'll be necessary to do that because there's a lot of shearing. If you look at the impeller in the center of this and the front and rear covers, the impeller blades are not evenly spaced so that there's not a pulsation going on in the absorber as it's working. It's smooth. There's front and rear cover impeller. You'll see on the left side, the right side of the left cover is where the torque arm goes, which is also laser cut. And once again, this is the front and rear covers, all CNC'd from billet aluminum here in the shop. And this is when we put the impeller in the center of the right cover. Left cover's on the left. That shows where the torque arm is bolted to the cover. Here's the center of the cover. The water exits at the bottom, the water comes in at the top. Here's the three pieces again. Left and right front and rear cover, impeller in the center for a single unit. This shows the bearing surface. We use CNC spindle bearings in our dyno because when I had a Stutzka dyno, the bearings used to fail on it because they weren't getting lubricated well. We also use a carbon-to-carbon seal. These are not self-lubricated. You can lubricate them as you use the unit. So there's a grease fitting in it, and we use spindle grease from a CNC to give it smoother, longer life. We found out from owning two CNCs and changing the bearings there, it was important. This is the complete unit from flange to flange. The bearing units on the side. This is the airflow system that we use both in the wet bench and on the dyno. Measuring air coming into the engine is as important as measuring fuel. Helps with camshaft development. It's also very good for air-fuel ratio being measured in. I have complete philosophies on separating the different fuel measurements and air measurements, both in and out. That's why it's like a research dyno, rather than just put a motor on testing dyno. Those are the hats for the 4500 and the 4150. Here again, the 4500 hat. Here's the 4150 again. Here in the dyno stand, we're finishing off the end. If any questions, please contact me at info1@dambest.com. I hope you have a great day. Thank you.